childhood and life of his childhood during the Cambodian genocide back in the 1970s. And again, Albert, thank you for doing this with me, and I'm glad we have you on here to interview about this book.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine, and thank you everyone for joining.
That's great. So, Albert, I want to start it off with first just to you've been my cousin my whole life since you were born and raised in Cambodia in your early life. I was born here in the U.S. and we have about a over 10-year spread in our age, but you're the son of my father's sister. Why don't you introduce yourself to the people watching who don't know you or aren't familiar with who you are?
Hi everyone. Again, my name is Albert Tang, and like Michael said, I was born and raised in Cambodia. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, we had to escape Cambodia. The family went through the genocide. Somehow we survived it, and the family, in fact, end up in the United States. That means my grandparents, my uncle, aunt, and so on. But my immediate family and my parents, in fact, we end up in New Zealand. So, but fortunately, I was able to reunite with the family in California, some maybe 22 years ago, I guess. And so I'm very fortunate. And right now, I'm currently, well, about a month ago, our company was, I work for Fitbit, by the way. I work in procurement or supply chain or operation, some people call it. And I have been very blessed with a good job. And able to live in the San Francisco Bay Area for the last 20 years.
Okay.
So I'm can't wait to share some of the story and answer some of the question. But before that, I just want to thank you I think most of you probably have read the book, and thank you for your interest in the stories.
Yeah, that's great. And for those of you those watching, Albert, who maybe are not English speaking, or maybe they're watching from Cambodia or Cambodian, I don't know if you want to give a quick a Cambodian New Year in Khmer for everybody that don't know. Today is Cambodian New Year, at least the end of the Cambodian New Year for today. So if you want to say give a happy Cambodian New Year in Khmer to everybody.
Wow, I think I have to apologize first of all. I almost forgot all my Cambodians, unfortunately. But anyway, sok survive.
Yeah, that's great. Great. So thank you everyone joining. There's people coming on to watch. Thank you for joining us again. My name is Michael Lee. I have the privilege of interviewing my older cousin Albert Tang, who just recently wrote his book and memoir, A Young Refugee's Journey: A Road to Freedom. You can get this on Amazon. Feel free to order it. It's a great book, short read, but also very impactful and inspiring about Albert's life when he was living in Cambodia the first 14 years of his life, and what he went through and how he survived. So Albert, why don't we start? So you wrote this book. Today is Cambodian New Year's, and 46 years ago, everyone who's studied Cambodian history or knows about Cambodian history knows that a significant event happened. But before we get to that, why now? Why did you write the book 46 years? You could have written it 40 years ago after you left. You could have written it 20 years ago. Why now? What caused you to write this book and put down these stories on paper for people to read?
No, interesting that you asked that question. To be honest, first of all, I mean, all of us have our own personal life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for the majority of people, you don't even know where to start. You never even thought about why do I want to write a book? What is it make my book interesting, right? who want to read my book?
Yeah.
You ask that question. And I was fortunate enough to have that real life experience. I come to that realization when I went for a job interview after my college years. When I went for interview with Hewlett Packard company, that was like 25 years ago.
Okay.
So it's supposed to be like a panel interview, but then two of the three interviews did not show up because of sick or family matter. So only end up with one guy interview me, and he asked me the question, and in 5 minutes, end up I was doing all the talking for the next 2 hours. And I was telling him the story about my upbringing in Cambodia, went through genocide and so on. And so I it took me like 2 to 3 hours. By the time we realized it was 5 p.m.
Wow.
So, and before I left, he said, "When can you start?"
Wow.
So from that moment, I knew that I have something that is special and unique.
Mm.
So, and then like most people, I work 12, 14 hours a day. I never have enough energy or time. And when you're young, you want to spend Friday night drinking in the bar rather than try to write story, right?
Right.
Just like I mentioned in my introduction, I start to write it because I try to kill time basically during my flight because it's too long and I had nothing to do. It was too boring. I could not sleep. And so I started maybe 10 years ago, I guess.
This is
But
traveling for
yeah,
work. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And I put bits and pieces in typing. And then last year when COVID-19 hit, I'm not a good I'm not good at handiwork. My wife not allow me to fix anything at home. So I was bored. I got nothing to do. So I said, okay, I'll bring my laptop. I just try to finish it. And somehow I finished it during last year.
That's great. So COVID-19, the pandemic really gave you the opportunity
Yeah,
to finish what you started over 10 years ago.
right. I guess the my neighbor said it, when life gives you lemon, you make lemonade out of it.
And you made a book. You made a book out of it. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. That's really wonderful. And for those of you who jumping on or watching, feel free to ask any questions. If you have any questions for Albert about his book, about his life, again, The Road to Freedom, A Young Refugee's Journey, pick it up on Amazon. Albert Tang's first book, and maybe not the last that he writes after our audience sells out, purchases all the books from Amazon for you. So Albert, you took the time to write this book and finish it during the pandemic. And today, for those you don't know, is the 46 years ago was a significant event in 1975, Cambodian New Year, April 14th, 1975. Can you tell, for those watching, what happened that day? What was significant about that day for Cambodians in Cambodia and Cambodians across the world?
So basically, that day, like any other Cambodian New Year's, right? April 14th. In most countries, including Cambodia, it's a day of joys, traditional festive. People would go out, family gathering.
Hmm.
So all those good things are supposed to be happening. And on 1975, during the at the almost the civil war about to end. In fact, it was ending that day. That's when the Khmer Rouge really took over the country. So at that time, to be frank, everybody was so excited. It is a new year day, supposed to be a good day. It is also the end of the civil war. So to many, I think I can almost say for certainty that to all Cambodian, it symbolized a good thing too. When the end of the civil war, right?
Right.
But nobody expect that that day change everyone's life in the whole Cambodia in a
Wow.
very tragic way. It's
Wow.
supposed to be a good day, but that day changed Cambodia history forever.
Wow. So for you, it'd be no different than celebrating New Year's here in America, celebrating July 4th. It was a normal celebratory day for the whole
Exactly.
country. Wow.
But it turned very quickly within like people celebrating on the on the 14th, on the 15th, and we were all kicked out by the 16th.
Wow. Wow. And how, Albert, how old were you during that day, on that
At
day,
that time,
1975?
maybe about 10,
Yeah.
about 10 years old.
Yeah,
I
10
mean,
years
I
old.
was old enough to remember, like at least I was not able to go out to play on the street because of the Khmer Rouge soldier were coming in and the other side was running and they're still fighting, gunfighting in the blocks in the city street.
Yeah. So yeah, for those watching, who you mentioned the Khmer Rouge, you said that that's a common frame. People who are Cambodian who know who they are, people who have studied Southeast Asian history. Who are the Khmer Rouge? What is that? When we say Khmer Rouge, what do we mean?
So first of all, Khmer Rouge, it actually came from the term, it's in French, right? Khmer, basically Cambodian, and Rouge, that means red. So it's
Red.
communist. Their symbol are red. So that's what Khmer Rouge, I mean, they call it literally it's a red Cambodia.
Yeah.
It refers to a Cambodian Communist Party, basically.
Okay, so this Cambodian Communist, and you write in the book, this Cambodian Communist Party, it's not like they showed up on that day, 1975. They had been in Cambodia as a party, as a group for several years, building up power, building up support as a political party, as a military party. And it was on that day, though, that's that day 46 years ago, that all of a sudden the implications of their power came to light for most Cambodians on that day.
No, exactly. I think the civil war started when right after the protest I saw from built my houses in 1970, right, 5 years before that. And the funny thing is, like you said, Cambodian Communist Party had been around for many years before that, but it was never been able to so-called accepted uh, by the population.
Ah, okay.
And the funny thing is, because this Lon Nol government, the coup, he overthrew Prince Sihanouk, and most of the Cambodian are against the coup.
Ah,
So they were fighting the coup or the Lon Nol government in support of the Sihanouk.
Prince Sihanouk, the
Prince Sihanouk,
nobility of the country,
right? The
right?
royal family,
The royal family,
the royal
yeah,
family.
right.
But in fact, they didn't know the Khmer Rouge or the Communist Party were using them under the name of the Prince Sihanouk to fight the Lon Nol government. I
Okay.
mean, in a
Wow.
political sense, that's what happened.
Yeah, so a civil war is breaking out. You're 10 years old. Khmer Rouge comes in 1975, and your parents had a school. Is that right? Were they running a school?
Yeah, they were teaching, and my dad was the deputy principal at the some middle well, high school. I guess in US you call it high school. It's a
Okay.
boarding school. Yeah.
Okay, boarding school. Okay, great. And so and we have a question from people watching. You wrote the book, and what do you hope readers reading the stories will get from the book? What do you hope the people who read the book get from it?
That is a very good question. I think in US or in most of the modern world today, right? I think we all enjoy a good life, we enjoy the freedom, and I want people to realize that these are precious.
Mm.
When I mean precious, they can be vanished, can be your way of life, your family, all these. if we are not careful, can be vanished overnight by violence, by civil war, by communism, by dictator. And we very, very fortunate. I myself considered myself you can consider I won the lottery
Yeah.
with my life
Yeah.
to be able to somehow live through it and tell the story.
Right. That's great, Albert. Yeah, in the way you paint the picture of 1975 was a normal day. April 14th was a normal day. No one expected what happened to happen, and that in a blink of an eye or in a matter of a few years, the accumulation of power from a political party, military party could change the course of history for a whole country, a whole society. It changed your life dramatically and millions of other Cambodians. So that's amazing. You know, I think that's a great message. So you're 10 years old, Khmer Rouge come in, they take over. So and what happens next? What happens? You said the next day, basically in a couple days, you're all basically kicked out of your homes. What happened?
Well, at that time, I think in the middle of chaos, we really don't know what to do. And everybody was so unprepared. So we literally packed basically a school bag and with 3 pairs of clothes in your bag. And say maybe, I don't know, 3 days of food supply. That's all you can carry. Can you imagine going out like this and you never come back home for
Wow.
5 years?
Wow, that's
You
amazing.
got no idea. Nobody ever expected this could happen. And the most incredible thing about the Khmer Rouge and how heartless they were was they deceitfully, when I wrote, they scheme up this. You can tell they scheme up this long before they took over. And they told everyone that American plane will come and bomb the city. So you are asked to leave for your own safety. So you can tell they schemed this up way in advance.
Wow. This was planned. This wasn't just made up on that day.
No.
This was planned.
This clearly was not made up for like overnight. This is planned way in advance. And I mean, you roll out this, you are asking like 4 million people in the whole country to leave.
Wow.
So this is well planned.
Yeah, I can't even imagine that. Albert. So you in that early period, you describe in the book that your parents and your parents brought you over to our grandparents' house where my father and our aunts and uncles were all, and they were all, you know, in their 20s and younger at the time, right?
Yep.
So tell me about that. Why did your parents bring you there, and what happened? What happened there?
See, I guess my parents, they knew that they could be arrested for whatever reason by the local government because they suspect. See, the Khmer Rouge, the force that fight against the government at the time, so pro-communist, right? Right. And at the time, communist force that were active were from communist China.
Right.
So naturally, the local government suspect that in the Chinese school, these people, some of them got to be communists. So that's where my parents knew that they could be arrested because of that relationship with the school. So they don't want me. I'm 5 years old. My brother is about 4 years old. They don't want me to both of us to. If they were arrested, we were too young to go through that. So they instead they left us there with grandma. I'm sure they make that decision very difficult decision. If any of you are parents, you probably know what I mean.
So yeah, so you found yourself not knowing the plan, but you found yourself with grandma, grandpa, with our aunts and uncles, and you and your younger brother, right?
Right.
You were together there. Um, then these events start happening, and you spend the next 4 years in the camps. You give great detail to a lot of these stories, which are amazing, including um, how Grandpa and my dad and the whole group are together. The 10 people are together that whole period. Um, what can you talk about? Can you talk about the uh, what it must felt like to be going through this, but not have your parents with you? What did that feel like? You had aunts and uncles and grandparents with you, but not have your parents with you there. What would that feel like at that such a young age?
I guess by that time we have become used to it, I guess.
Hmm.
It never even occurred to me. I have to admit, I never even spend too much time thinking about my parents or anything like that. And plus, probably my aunt, my uncles, grandma, grandpa, they treat us like part of the family.
Yeah.
We accustomed to it already.
Okay. Yeah.
So it did occur to me like, oh, I wish I see my mom today and all that. Well, occasionally when it's a new year come along, there's festive, people give out gifts and all that. Yeah, that's when the time you may start thinking about your parents.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think just it was really normal.
Yeah. That
Other
makes
than the
sense.
initial traumatization that you go through.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we don't want to give the whole book away. We want to encourage people to read it. I think there's some great stories, and you eventually do reunite with them, which I think is very, very, very powerful. What's you know, for you and your brother, you were together that whole time with, and you were much younger than some of the aunts and uncles, and then, I think our uncle Kenny was about the same age or young, a little younger than you at the time, right?
Yeah.
Um, tell me about kind of what the relationship was like with your brother, and maybe with some of my aunts and uncles, like the bond you formed to survive. What was that like?
I think we living with grandma. First of all, grandma and grandpa and uncle, the sibling, the relationship, I have to say is great at the time. I think we all went out fishing, we all went out hunting together, and I have to I don't remember there were time like we fighting. I don't remember that.
Mm.
Maybe we were too busy to fight anyway. And we
Yeah.
were with even before the Khmer Rouge, right? We went out fishing. We went out. I mean, grandma house was great area along the river, the main, and we went out fishing, went out catching crab and all that, even before
Yeah.
Pol Pot. And
Okay.
so my childhood was preoccupied with all these outdoor activities.
Yes. Yeah. That's great. And then, so then during that 4 year period, during the Khmer Rouge reign, what did it change much for you, or did it feel like, hey, I'm with my brother, I'm with my uncle, I'm with other kids, we're playing. This is playtime, or did the immensity of what was happening hit you at that time when you were that young?
I guess the at the time the only thing was when we were hungry, right? And then we it's the way I look at it, everything is a relative.
Mm,
You relative to me or relative to some others. But because we were brought up in the rural side of Cambodia, you can look at it from a US standpoint. I joined Boy Scout from the early day,
yeah.
right? So when I going out to the wood, I have naturally I have developed more survival skill, catching crab, catching fish, and all that compared to other city kids. So for me at the time, I felt like, oh, this is natural for me. So and we were able to gather food and all that and work as a team.
Hmm. That's great. That's really, really great. What somebody was asking the question, what was the media coverage like when, during this time, like right before the Khmer Rouge came in, or if you can remember, or after the Khmer Rouge, ended their power? Do you remember seeing media? Do you remember seeing reporting happening? Was all radio? I know the internet wasn't around then, so was it all radio and television? You know, what was that like?
So maybe the first 5 days after the Civil War, right, when we were kicked out, walking out towards the countryside, we still saw like maybe some European white man. I mean, to me at the time, white man,
Yeah.
uh, uh, news reporter,
Wow.
and very likely they are most of them probably American or French,
Okay.
right? And I don't know they how they were able to escape. Did the Pol Pot people round them up and somehow? But I mean, after day 5, we don't see them anymore.
Wow.
While we're still on the road, we don't see them anymore. Either they all been rounded up because this reporter in the midst of the end of Civil War. You imagine all the people are spread, getting out, being evacuated from the city, block all the road, traffic jam everywhere, right? And this reporter are amongst us, taking photo here and there.
Wow.
But then you can see probably the Khmer will probably round them up one by one. It may take them a few days, but I don't know what happened to them. Hopefully they survive. I really don't know, to be honest.
Wow. That's crazy. Um, do you feel like you know, from the experience, do you feel like looking back um at the past 40 years of your life, early on, like when you got to New Zealand after you left Cambodia, and eventually your parent, you know, you and your parents and your family went to New Zealand. That's where you were refugees at. Um, was there somebody's asking, one of our cousins is asking, was there PTSD from the experience? Did you go through, or did your family go through post-traumatic stress disorder, or was leaving the country and being in New Zealand such a healing moment for you that you didn't have to deal with that? Like, do you remember that time?
I guess yeah, I do remember, but I guess the PTSD I only heard about it after the Iraq War. I guess soldier went through traumatic experience, and so for me, I guess went to New Zealand. I could only I say see when after we went to New Zealand, we so emerge in the mainstream society, go to school, attending school, and go to work and so on. We were so busy, and most of the time we either speak Chinese at home and English at school and work, right? So
Right.
I really have a chance to speak in Cambodia. But maybe you don't know, every year, Cambodian New Year or some festival, we join the Cambodian community. So that day, we will probably start to mingle in Cambodians,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I noticed after that day, I go to sleep. Sometimes I would remember events happen in Cambodia,
Wow.
and or I would be saying something in Cambodian. So I guess you can call that PTSD. But
So
I mean,
yeah.
I didn't have that traumatic effect that will negatively impact me. No, no, I
Wow.
have to say no, not
Wow.
negatively impact me.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
and it sounds like, you know, um, because you got to New Zealand and you got thrust into school, into New Zealand life and learning that, you were just so busy focusing on that, there wasn't a whole lot of time to sit and just think about
yeah,
what had just happened, you know. um tell us about, you know, you talk a lot about, throughout this book, the complicated relationships. I like to call it complicated relationships because, um you know, when you read the book, I think, most of us, when we read a story, we want to know who are the good guys, who are the bad guys, who are the antagonists, who are the protagonists, right? Who are the heroes, who are the villains? And in your story, you don't try to paint all the Khmer Rouge as all villains. You don't try to paint a certain group or a certain group as the heroes or the winners all the time. Uh, can you talk about the complex relationships that you ran across, such as different family members or close friends that were part of the Khmer Rouge, or different Khmer Rouge leaders that helped you survive during that time? Can you talk about that a little bit, and how during Civil War things get very complicated in relationships?
Yeah, in the you it's I'm glad you caught on that. To be honest, I personally I found that also very interesting, the human dynamic. No matter what your political affiliation or religion believe or not, at the end of the day, when you're dealing with human, your interaction between human being, at the end of the day, it's still human being,
Hmm.
right? You may come across a person right away, you don't like him. He
Right.
may be your cousin, right? You don't like him.
Right.
Or you may come across a stranger, but you click right away.
Right.
And so no matter what your political affiliation, during the Khmer Rouge period, you can see also there was some Khmer Rouge leader that they are very brutal and so on. But then they are all on the surface. If you don't know them personally, they follow the policy, they follow whatever their what do you call it, the management told them to do.
Right.
But when you know them at that personal level, they're still human being.
Right. Right. Tell the story about how you basically could be blind today, or you could be dead today, but for the help of one of the Khmer Rouge leaders, and what they did to help heal your eye. Um, when you woke up with that eye problem.
Yeah, this is the story that I remember for the rest of my life. Because really, I mean, who would have thought that connection I have with those two bulls? And at the time, I mean, I didn't know that I was these two bulls had not been able to connect with anyone for the past few months.
Yeah,
And the
so
owner,
let's back up. So the two bulls, like, quickly tell what's going on there. What's the two bulls? What are you talking about? Yeah.
so basically, the family, we were just moved to a new village, right?
Okay.
And of these are more like 20 family, there were 10 kids,
Okay.
age between maybe 10 to 14. And we show up. Each kid supposed to assign to take care of two bulls or two cows. I mean, bull and cow in Cambodia is almost like a car or a tractor.
Okay.
It is used for cultivation, it's very essential. It's not just a cow, right? It's a
Right.
it's a tool that for
It's a tool. It's
so
a tool.
it's a
Yeah.
big deal.
Yeah.
And so, like everyone else, I was lined up there, and it so happened number one, two, three, boy number one, two, three were picking up two cows, two bulls, and then there was boy number seven, or number six, or number six, I think, or number seven, yeah, number seven. He was assigned to this bull. These two bulls were very big bull. They belong to the what do you call that? The head of the villager.
He was Khmer Rouge. He was a Khmer
Yeah,
Rouge.
the Khmer Rouge
Yeah. Yeah.
leader
Yeah.
of the village, and it's very imposing. I mean, this bull, you can tell, is unlike any bulls. And the bull attacked, so try to struck the boy, and he fell.
Wow.
And I was standing there, I saw it, I was naturally nervous. You imagine 10 years old boy, you are nervous, right? And then the next one come along, number 8, and I was number 9. So the bull tried to strike the boy number 8 again. And so now it's me coming up next. I naturally was nervous, but then I guess I got no choice. I have to approach him. I have to go through that process. But miraculously, the bull accepted me.
Huh.
I mean, I like you pet a dog, right? A
Yeah.
stranger dog. You go as a boy, you approach a dog, and if you know anything about a dog, if the dog wag its tail, right, that is a friendly. You can tell it's friendly.
Yeah.
Ooh, the same way. If you walk towards the bull and it doesn't put its neck down and its tail keeps still wagging at the behind, still wagging, you can tell it's a good sign. So I was able to reach, and the bull closed its eyes.
Wow.
So you imagine the bull is probably maybe even 10 times my size. And for that moment, oh, it's amazing.
That's amazing.
But then, okay, I took care of the bull, but then I never expect later on when I had a sore eye. And I mean, just a sore eye is no big deal in a normal day like this, right? You just put eye drop and you kill. But during that Khmer Rouge environment, you have no medication. I mean, absolutely no medication.
Wow.
And working in outdoor in the field, there are pollens, there are dust everywhere. So it just get worse day by day. And I'm pretty sure without that, and you can look at it, you probably laugh. Yeah, coconut juice, right? Clean it. I don't even know how it worked, but I felt so good and it killed my eyes. And
Wow.
maybe because it's so clean and the impurity of the coconut juice, I think that helped to clean up.
So you had this eyesore. You went to the Khmer Rouge leader, let him know, or he saw that you had an eyesore, and
Yeah,
he went and got the coconuts for you
yeah,
to heal your eye, to put in
yeah,
your eye. He knew what to do.
yeah.
But and that wouldn't have been possible if you didn't have this relationship taking care of his bulls.
That is correct. And
Wow.
for example, if he was not the Khmer Rouge leader, he would not have the authority to pick up the coconut fruit either.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it's amazing how simple things like that change your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can see today you're still here, which
Yeah,
is great.
yeah.
Yeah. So, um, uh, you you survive the 4 years. The whole family, the whole group, ends up near the Vietnamese border, and you run into, um, basically you tell the story that my father goes to the market one day and runs into your mom, your parents,
Yeah.
right? And this is a they are near the Vietnamese Cambodian border, and one of the cities. He goes and runs into them. What was it like seeing your parents for the first time after so many years, of not seeing them? What was that like?
Well, first of all, I didn't even recognize my mom.
Wow.
Right? I did not even recognize my mom.
Wow.
I mean, I knew I have seen this lady somewhere before, but I don't know who she was or what
Wow.
is her relationship with the family.
That's amazing. And so were you didn't recognize her, you finally realize it's your parents, obviously. She's probably crying, excited to
Yeah.
see you. Do you remember how it felt? Was it like, "Oh my gosh, my parents are back," or was it, I need to get to know this stranger. This is a
No, I
stranger I need to
guess
get to know.
we
Yeah.
at the time it was so excited. We were so excited, right? And I I guess I didn't. I think probably the joyous moment. I guess you
Mhm.
can feel that way. But and then we were just busy on moving on. Say after we met on day 2, we start packing and moving again to
Yeah,
go to Vietnam.
to go to
So we
Vietnam.
didn't really think too much about okay what emotion. I don't remember much really, to be honest.
So the whole family goes to Vietnam, where your parents are. They've established a life. They've been there during this time, right?
Yep.
In Vietnam. So, then you all decide, hey, if we get to Thailand, we can maybe apply for refugee status, because there was nothing for you in Vietnam, or it would be difficult to establish that in Vietnam. So You go back into Cambodia to try to get into Vietnam, but you're separated. So you're with your family, and then our grandparents and the rest of the aunts and uncles are are off in their own group. How did that feel to, after having spent, 4 to 6 years or a number of years with your grandparents and with aunts and uncles who basically you had survived the genocide with? How did that feel to be split up now? Were you happy, excited to be with your parents, or were you upset that you had to be split up with this group of people that you had, survived life with?
You know, I have to admit it never even occurred to me that way.
Hmm.
I guess we were before we so depart in two different routes. We knew that, or at least we hope that we'll end up in the same place.
Yeah.
So we knew that we would probably meet again in maybe 10 days. But again, at the time, I guess the time we didn't have much choice. Uh, as you read the book, along that journey, one group may not show up.
Right.
We never even, I guess we prepare for it, but we never even think too much about it. At the time, it was just like you got nothing to lose, and that's the best option you have. So you just run with it, really.
Wow, that's amazing. What would you say? Is there a period of that 4 to 5 year, 5 year period between the start of the Khmer Rouge taking over and you finally getting, to Thailand and then leaving for New Zealand? That period of time, would you say there were periods of that time where that were scarier or darker for you than other periods? Like, if you can remember, was there a period of time where you're like, wow, this seems to be the worst part of that part time? This was the worst part for you. Um,
So I think in terms of when you say the worst part, to me, the worst part is when you are the most hungry,
hmm,
when you don't know where your next meal come from. I mean, literally, you don't know where your next meal come from.
wow.
I think that's all I can. If you call that the worst time, yeah, that was
Yeah.
probably in 1977, the end of 1977, 78. That's when Grandpa finally could not hold on.
Wow.
If you call that's the worst time, I would say that's the worst time, because you really got no idea where your next meal come from.
Wow. Wow. In
Anything after that, all those hard is a breeze to me, to be honest.
Yeah, you are one of the few cousins that got time with grandpa. You got to know him, you spent time with him, he raised you, he what was he like? What was your grandfather, our grandfather, like?
So grandpa, you look at it. Grandpa has well, I look at him from two angles, right? Professionally, I think he's a great employee. I mean, he was one of those person that he would do his best and he was well recognized by his employer.
Hmm.
That's how he can support his big family. Imagine in US, right? You have to support 10 kids and 7 children. So grandpa did it. So I have, yeah, he as an from a professional standpoint, he's very good at what he was doing. He was really good. I mean, you go to Comport, you talk about grandpa, an accountant, everybody knows him,
Wow.
to give you an idea. And at a personal level at home, I think I never seen him. I mean, in Asia, you probably see a lot of parents, especially dad, beat their kids, or sometimes even abusive. That's a norm in Asia. but living with grandpa for maybe 10 years at least, he never hit me.
Wow.
I'm sure I was not a good boy. I was wild. I'm sure when I was a kid, and we probably drove him crazy. But he never beat me.
Wow. That's great. So he was professionally great, and it seems like he was a great grandfather, a great dad
Yeah, yeah.
to everybody.
And he's working. I mean, I don't think he speak French, but because of the airline that he was working on at the time in Cambodia, most of the pilots were French or American.
Mm-hmm.
He would probably go out and host those pilots to like celebrating some good business quarter and so on, right? Just like, yeah, he would go around and yeah,
Have a good time.
yep.
Yeah, that's great. What, um, one of the questions from one of our cousins is how young were the members of the Khmer Rouge? How young were, there's obviously reports that they recruited children, they recruited young people to be a part of them, but how young were the soldiers that you saw um, commonly?
So, I mean, the soldier I've seen probably, I guess when you are fighting for many years, you run out of recruit, so you grab whatever you can.
Yeah.
So it's not uncommon to see child soldier, and what I
Wow.
mean child soldier probably, I would think some of them even 12 years old.
Wow.
I can when they were putting the gun on the shoulder, you can tell the gun is taller than the kid.
Wow. What was
I
that?
don't know if you know one of the AK-47 is
Mhm.
a common gun used by the Russian and the communist China
Yeah.
or the Vietnamese. Those guns, they're not that long, right? They may be what, 5 feet long, a maximum, maybe 5, 6 feet long, the gun. And the kid is not even that tall.
Wow. And was it what did it feel like, or what went through your mind when you saw kids basically your age, but they were Khmer Rouge soldiers and not a kid like you, as somebody who was just part of the village. They were a soldier. You know, these are kids your age that you could be playing with or be friends with. Was that like normal or?
The funny thing is, I was proud. I was quite jealous of them. I want to hold a gun.
So you
you
thought
know,
like any other kid, you're like, that's pretty cool. You have a gun. Why don't I have a gun? I'd like to have a gun.
exactly.
Wow.
Because we were the so-called newcomers. We were not the old comrade.
Mm,
If I were the old comrade family, I would have the privilege to be trained and have gun my own.
wow.
So I had to be honest with you. I kind of jealous. I want to. I was.
Interesting. Yeah, you're thinking like a kid, right? You're a kid.
Yeah.
You're thinking like a kid. There was no nuance in your mind. Oh, they're a part of a bad political group or military group or
No, to me
yeah.
at the time, it's an honor. It's a privilege to have that.
Right. Wow.
I long for it.
Yeah. um, Albert, you obviously didn't you didn't write you had been writing these stories for the past 10 plus years during your business travels, remembering killing time, remembering and not probably thinking it would be a book one day. Um, you probably didn't also expect to release the book in the middle of the pandemic, and also um, to see what's happened in our country over the past 12 months, the civil unrest around racism, and especially in the past 3 months, the kind of exposure around Asian hate, because of the pandemic, because of the rhetoric being passed around by political leaders in our country. You probably you didn't plan that. I know you didn't have a master plan, but sometimes you release things or things come out in a very unique time, and so I would call this a moment where your book is timely. Your book has come out in a moment in our country's history where we're dealing with a lot of realities around racial tension and Asian Americans. um, I think I think this is unique because every Asian American story is very different, every people groups of people are very different. When you reflect on the book about your stories and you releasing it and you reflect on what you're seeing in our country right now, what thoughts come to mind? What comes to you in your mind around what Asian Americans are dealing with right now and kind of this book being released right now?
No, you interesting. Like you said, this book, the timing and all that, it was. I never have any foresight to see the release of the book and the timing of the current environment, so-called inside. It almost like coincidence, really.
Yeah, yeah,
And and I guess I myself, even from a young age, I always lived in a multiracial community. Or I mean, correctly speaking, I always lived in a, no matter in Cambodia or in Vietnam or in New Zealand or here, I had always been a minority.
yeah.
In Cambodian, they call me Chinese. In China, they call me Cambodian.
Yeah, and so yeah, for people who don't know that nuance is we're Chinese ethnically, our blood, we're Chinese,
Right, right,
but you were culturally you grew up in Cambodia. So
right.
you're in a country that you quote unquote don't belong to, but then where do you belong?
Yeah,
Right? This whole
exactly.
time. Yes. So you've
So
always
I
been a
think
minority. Yeah.
so. For me, I think I so get used to it. So my message to everyone, I guess, is we all live in a multicultural society, especially in the US, in the Western world, right? You have people from Europe, from Asia, from Africa, from Latin America, and wherever the world you are coming from. We need to, I guess, we need to respect each other differences.
Mm.
We don't have to agree on everything. We don't have to agree on everything. I don't even agree on everything with my brother. In fact,
Yeah.
most of the stuff I don't agree with my brother. But we can still have a civil dialogue. We can still find common ground. We can still coexist.
Yeah.
This is better for all, right?
Yeah.
Because if we can't even have a civil dialogue, everything end up in violence.
Yeah.
Looking at our way of life today, right? We uh, we have one so-called one man, one vote. We have a constitution. We have a co-equal branch of government. All these, you guys probably think this is a given.
Right.
I can tell you for sure, at least 50% of the world population don't even have that.
Wow.
And I did not have that.
Yeah.
It took me almost 15 years to be able to even have that. Finally, when we end up in New Zealand, right? And so you don't have to agree on everything. You don't have to vote the party that I vote for and all that politically. But we have to respect the Constitution. We have to respect the process, right? The so-called peaceful transfer of power. Imagine if you have to end up in violence, in war every 4 years because a party was elected and the one that you didn't vote for.
Yeah.
Do you have a stability in your job? Will you have a stability and safety net for your families? Right? That's I think my message. Oh, we can have differences, but we don't have to end up fighting.
That's great. That's really, really great. Albert, last question somebody asked, Alan Tang asks, probably a relative of ours, where the picture of the book cover came from, what inspired that picture, and how did you come up with the title? You know, maybe this is a inspiring author one day. Is how did you pick your book cover and where'd the title come from?
So certainly, hi Alan. By the way, Alan is from Oakland.
Oh, great.
He's my nephew. So so it, yeah, I think I have to give that credit to my wife, who was she is the most artistic talent person I never met. I mean, I was fortunate to, so when I go through this book designing process, they give us several photo. I chose a few photo, and she so gave me some ideas that this is what I want. This what will fit the book, and that's how we end up. Yeah, that book. By the way, that book is supposedly the portrait of me and my brother, right?
Yeah, right, right,
Supposedly,
right.
and the back looking supposed to symbolically looking to the future, right?
Yeah,
So it's a great cover. Yeah, I agree.
that's great. That's great. Well, Albert, this has been awesome. This has been amazing, and so everybody, the road to freedom, a young refugee's journey. You don't have to be Cambodian to read this and get something from it. This is for everybody: children, adults, parents, school. Whatever background you come from. If you're an immigrant or refugee yourself, or a new American, you're gonna get something from this. You probably resonate even more with the stories in this book. But I found myself so fascinated because you're not just focused in this book about the stories of what happened, but you talk very intimately about what some of those experiences were like for you that that are not normal, right? Like learning how to work with bulls when you were a city boy, and and being treated as a minority, as a newcomer, or learning how to go through and deal with hunger, or how to survive in the complicated human relationships. So Albert, this has been amazing. I really appreciate one. I want to thank you, and for myself and for all of our cousins. Thank you for writing this book, because again, you were one of the few cousins to go through this, to have the memories, to write it down. This is going to be a legacy for us to pass down to our kids, and I have so much gratitude to you for this. So thank you so much for doing that, and so on behalf of all the cousins, thank you, and we hope one day you can keep sharing and writing and telling these stories, so that we don't forget. But thank you again. Any last and parting words for those watching or listening?
Yeah, thank you, Michael, again. So, in terms of one, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to the President Reagan,
Hmm.
and specifically our former First Lady Nancy Reagan. As you probably saw in the book, that because of her, I'll say at least hundreds and thousands of Cambodian lives were rescued and saved.
Wow.
She, this was back in 1979 now, when many Cambodian refugees escaped to Thailand. Nancy Reagan happened to be visit Southeast Asia, and she, at least I was told, she happened to be reading a local newspaper, local English newspaper, while she was having her breakfast,
Hmm.
about the crisis in the Thai-Cambodian border. And she could have just done nothing, right?
Right.
But instead, she changed her schedule. She flew by helicopter from Bangkok to the Thai-Cambodian border to witness for herself what happened.
Wow.
And not just that. I mean, some people do it for lip service, right?
Right. Right.
But she, in fact, she went back, after she went back to the US, a few days later, she went to the United Nations to plead for help. That's how we were accepted as a refugee. And
Wow.
you are talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Cambodian refugees was saved by her. So I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to her.
Wow. That's great, Albert. I didn't know that. That's great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing
Yeah,
that with us.
I
And
want, I mean, I'm sure
amazing.
not many people in the US knew about this story.
Yeah.
And if anything, I can see the humanity on her side.
Mm,
That's why I keep saying, no matter what position you're in, when you're dealing with another human being or whatever the issue is, there are human involved here.
hmm
And she really showed her humanity.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Albert. This has
Thank
been
you.
yeah, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for watching. This will be up. Please feel free to share it with anybody, with your friends. It'll be up on Facebook. And we look forward to maybe we'll talk again once your book becomes a bestseller. We'll be talking again, Albert.
Yep. Oh, so yeah, when the COVID's over, we'll get together. Thank you,
Yes, definitely.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye.